My wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom, and to be honest, at the end of the day, this decision comes down to a number game. It's all about the numbers. And if you want your wife to be a stay-at-home mom, or if your wife has ever brought up being a stay-at-home mom, it can be a scary thing because you're only relying on one income. You are all you got, and you have to plan for everyone's retirement. You have to save for everybody and provide for everyone. So before I even think about how can my wife be a stay-at-home mom, I have to think about what are the benefits, what are the values of her being a stay-at-home mom? And there are a few. One of the benefits is that we can raise our son the way we want to raise our son. We don't have to put him in daycare, where he's really being raised by daycare people, because he'll be there from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or however early you have to get him there. And also you have daycare costs. If you don't know, daycare costs is out the roof. So I looked up the average cost of daycare, and we're talking about $332 per week. That's over $1,300 a month just for daycare for one child. He makes considerably less than me, and that's definitely feasible for both of our incomes. But once you talk about two kids paying $1,300 a child, that's $2,600 a month just for daycare. We don't even pay that for our mortgage. Our monthly expenses is less than $2,600 a month. So now we're adding $2,600 a month, which means my wife has to make more money, or I have to make more money, so we can actually afford something like that and afford our monthly expenses and be able to save and put our money into retirement. So daycare is honestly feasible with one child, but with two, it's not. So we have to figure out whether she's going to stay home mom, whether she's going to make more money, whether I can make more money. Where are we going to make up this lapse of income to afford this kind of daycare? Right now we have one child, so $1,300 a month. It's very feasible, but she's a stay-at-home mom, then we don't have to put $1,300 a month to a daycare that's going to feed them their food, that's going to teach him the things that we may be able to teach him better or feed him better at our house. And honestly, it's also less stress. It's also less stressful because we know where our son is at all times. We know what he's doing at all times. We know how he's interacting with things or interacting with people. We know what exactly he's doing at all time. When they're in daycare, you don't know what they're doing. And let me tell you this, I am not a person that is totally against daycare, because I support daycare. If your spouse makes a lot of money and you can't really afford to lose that money, but maybe you can afford daycare because it is only a temporary thing, you are kind of sacrificing your career growth by becoming a stay-at-home parent. I support daycare. I don't mind my son going to daycare, but my wife expressed wanting to be a stay-at-home mom. So we have to look at if we can make this work or how we can make this work. But to be honest, having a stay-at-home parent does not work unless you have your expenses under control. And this is the biggest reason why I think that we can really go full-time stay-at-home parent. Right now, my wife has a part-time work-from-home job, so she's not making a lot of money, but it's something. I think that we can really have her stay home full time because we have our expenses under control. And I talk about keeping your expenses low as possible, especially in your early 20s, even your late 20s, which I'm in now, before you're 30, even in your 30s. Have your expenses as low as possible so you can save and invest for your future. But also, you can have this option to have your wife be a stay-at-home mom if she requires. But if you keep your expenses low, you can now have this option of having a stay-at-home spouse because you did the work to keep your expenses low. You did the work to keep your housing low. You did the work to keep your transportation low. And you have to make sure that you're still able to invest. So the actual plan that we need to implement in order for my spouse to be a stay-at-home parent is look at our take-home income. Look at our take-home income. How much are we making on average per month? And can we live off that amount? And we're only looking at guaranteed income. I'm not looking at overtime. I'm not looking at Sunday pay. I'm not looking at side hustles or side gigs. I'm only looking at the main job, because I can't promise you that I'm going to get overtime. I can't promise you I'm going to work on Sundays. And I can't promise you that I'm going to continually get the same amount of hours for this gig work. So these are all things that you need to think about before you have a stay-at-home spouse. Then again, we have to look at our expenses. So now we know how much we're taking home. Say we take home $5,000 a month. We have to now look at our expenses. We cannot be sloppy with our expenses if we have one income, because this one income is supposed to provide your savings. It's supposed to provide your retirement. It's supposed to provide your vacation. It's supposed to provide all these different things. So we have to be very smart, very diligent, very responsible with our income that we're bringing in if we're going to have a single household income. For our expenses, we need to first look at our housing. How much are you paying for your house? Before you go out and buy this big old house, talk to your spouse. Do you have ambitions to be a stay-at-home parent. When we have a child, do you want to be a stay-at-home parent? Because we can go and buy this house, this $2,600 a month payment, and we can both afford this very comfortably. But if we're going to get this house and then you hit me with, I want to be a stay-at-home parent, this house is not going to work. So we have to figure out if we can find a living situation where in the potential future you decide to be a stay-at-home parent, then we can actually make this house payment work on a single household income. Just get a cheaper house, and then you may not know if you want to be stay-at-home parent right now, but we have a cheaper house where I can afford this house all by myself. So if you do want to be a stay-at-home parent, then you can do that. But if not, then we're probably gonna have extra income because we bought way below our means, which is what you should always do. You should always buy below your means, especially if you're not able to save for retirement, if you're not able to save any money in your savings for a rainy day, for an emergency fund, which is something else we need to talk about, an emergency fund, which you definitely need to have if you have a single household income. But right now we're talking about the housing, so you want to definitely make sure you have your housing under control. We have that under control. We're house hacking. But when we do move out the house hack, this house hack is going to produce income, and we're going to keep that number conservative on how much money we're going to actually use towards our housing or towards our savings, whatever we're going to do with that extra money. We also look at what house we're going to move to. We want to make sure that this house is affordable to me, especially if we're going to be a single household income, because we have one child now and we plan on having another. At least 6 years, 7 years that my wife could possibly be a stay-at-home mom until they go to school, and then she can get a job, which will be more than likely because there's no point of staying at home if the kids aren't home. You might as well go out there and make some extra income where we can invest and kind of catch up on things that we weren't able to do when you were a stay-at-home mom because we had less income coming in. We want to look at our cars. We want to make sure before my wife is a full-time stay-at-home parent, I want to have all of our debts paid off, at least the car payment. We have about $10,000 left on the car payment, so I want to make sure the car payment's paid off. I don't want to have money being pulled from my account for debts. I really don't want to have student loans, so I want to make sure our student loans are paid off or close to being able to be paid off, because once you lose that income, you're probably going to move to a bigger house. And once you move to that bigger house, you probably have a bigger car, or you're going to get a bigger car. So you want to make sure that your expenses are low as possible, and you want to pay off these debts. And that's what we're doing right now. We're going to make sure these debts are paid off before she stays home for good. I mean, she has a good job now. She's been kind of working that for a few years. So it's good to have that extra income, but it's not that full-time income. So we want to make sure that our debt is paid off. We want to make sure that our insurance is in place. We have health insurance. You want to make sure that you have life insurance. And that's something that was super important to me. I was not really educated on life insurance and how important it is, but life insurance is super important because you only have one income. So if something were to happen to you, then what will happen to your family as a whole? Because there's no more income coming in, so what's going to happen to them? So you want to make sure you have life insurance. We have term life insurance, which I think is the best. It has the lowest premiums. We pay like $35 a month for a $1 million policy. So if I were to die, if something were to happen to me and I was not on this earth anymore, I know my wife and my child will get $1 million to kind of live off of, kind of work things out and figure things out. $1 million is not a crazy amount of money, but it's definitely something that you can work with. Imagine you got $1 million right now. And my policy is about 20 years, because in 20 years, as you know, I plan on retiring. We want to make sure we have our food budgets in place as well. We don't want to be spending all this money on going out to eat. We can't do that anymore. We have lost some income, so that money has to be divvied up and put somewhere else. So lifestyle change is almost guaranteed when you're losing income, and that's something that we'll be going through. Once my wife loses her job, it will be a lifestyle change. There won't be as much eating out. There may still be a good bit of vacations, but that's all depending on our expenses at the time. To be honest, if one income covers all the needs, then the rest is just discipline. You have to be disciplined. You have to have your money under control if you're going to have this one household income. And I think that is something that we have. I think we have great control of our money. All of our bills are auto pay. Everything is kind of paid for every single month. We're still able to save. We're still able to invest. Everything kind of lines up good to the point where my wife can potentially be a stay-at-home mom. But like I said, before my wife becomes a stay-at-home mom, the main thing we want to have is an emergency fund. And I've talked about emergency funds before and how important they are, But therefore, when emergencies happen, when say I lose my job or I get injured and I can't make money at the time, I have an emergency fund put aside. So how much should you have, or how much should I have if my wife's gonna be stay-at-home mom? I would say 6 months to a year if you're in a one household income. You just want more cushion. I mean, you're gonna be stressed out if you lose your job so you can find another one, but if you have 6 months to a year, preferably a year, you're gonna have that extra cushion. You're not gonna be too stressed because you lost your job, but you still have this $40,000 or even $50,000 on your side, which depending how much your expenses are, your 1 year worth of emergencies can definitely be $50,000 depending on what your lifestyle looks like. And that's why you got to keep your expenses, keep your lifestyle as low as possible, live within your means so that you don't have to save, $40,000 or $50,000 for a 1 year worth of emergencies, which is honestly, that's kind of low, to be honest with you. What's that? 50,000 divided by 12. That's $4,000 a month that you're spending for your expenses. Half of that could be your rent or your mortgage. So this is why it's also important to keep your rent and your mortgage low. House hack, get a roommate. Find ways to keep your expenses low so that you can save this emergency fund as fast as possible. And then once you do save this emergency fund, then we can actually talk about you being a stay-at-home mom. And another thing that we're going to do is be sure to avoid lifestyle creep. We cannot increase our lifestyle off of no plan. Before you become a stay-at-home spouse, before she becomes a stay-at-home spouse, we have to make sure that we have our lifestyle under wraps. We do not want to fall for lifestyle creep. Once we get pay increases, we need to make sure that we're investing those pay increases. Maybe the next year we get a pay increase, we add to our budget, but we have to make sure that we're avoiding lifestyle creep. We're avoiding going to get that big house. We more than likely have to avoid getting that big nice car with that big car payment while you're a stay-at-home parent, because we have less money to work with. We have to be way more smarter with our money now that we have a one household income. And we also have to be sure that we can stay invested into our 401k. We may have to drop our contributions for a moment, but we have to be okay with that. And we have to look at what the numbers look like if we were to drop our 401k contributions to a certain amount for a certain amount of years. So we need to punch these numbers into our 401k calculator or into our investment calculator and see what our retirement will look like with the less amount of money contributed for that moment. But for us, I want to keep that number, that 15%, that 16, that 17% number contributed, and continue to invest that into my 401k so that it can continue to grow. And by the time we retire, it can provide a retirement for both of us. Because guess what? Because she's not working, she's giving up the opportunity to invest. She's giving up the opportunity to retire. And really now I have to invest and retire both of us. So we have to be okay with things that we're giving up. Before we have a stay-at-home parent, there are going to be some sacrifices that need to be made. Like I said before, there's going to be less eating out. There's going to be less impulse buying, less of those random Amazon purchases, less of those random clothes that we buy. It's possibly going to be less vacation. It's possibly going to be less just going out for entertainment that costs money because you have less income coming in. It might take longer times for us to purchase big items or upgrades. A lot of things are going to slow down, and we have to prepare for this. We have to know that we're probably going to be staying in more often. These are all the sacrifices that you make for a common good. What's more important to you? Raising your child, being the one in control of what your child watches, what your child consumes, what your child does, or not wanting to sacrifice or not being able to sacrifice your current lifestyle. So personally, I don't think you need a massive salary to have a stay-home parent. I definitely think you need to make good money, but the biggest thing that you need to do is to check your expenses. If you have to live with a roommate for your spouse to be a stay-at-home parent, it may not be the most ideal thing, but that's a possibility. If you have to move to a lower cost of living area, that's a possibility as well. You may not be able to go buy your dream home, but if your spouse really wants to be a stay-at-home parent and you can make it work, then go and rent or go look at that house that costs $100,000 less. You don't always have to go get the biggest house. You don't always have to get the most expensive house. You don't have to buy the house that the lender approves you for. You can always buy lower. So at the end of the day, your spouse does not have to be a stay-at-home parent, but my spouse has expressed the want to, the need to be a stay-at-home parent. And I looked at the numbers, I crunched the numbers, and I said, hey, this is a possibility, but only because we put the work in. We are now over $100,000 invested in our 401k. Because we put the work in before our child got here, we have a house hack. We pay little to no money for our mortgage. And because we have this Honda CR-V and an almost paid off new car, we can now look at the options of her being a stay-at-home parent because our expenses are so low going into our 30s. We keep our expenses low because we know as time goes on, the expenses are going to go up, more than likely every single year, but our expenses are going to go up as we have more kids. Our expenses are going to go up as inflation rises. Our expenses are going to go up as we move to different places, to different cities, to different houses. Our expenses are going to go up regardless. So we want to keep them as low as possible now so that we can slowly build them as we build our income, and our expenses kind of go up with our income, which will kind of work out for us. But if we start off right away with high expenses, it will be tough to keep up because they only get higher from there. So imagine if our expenses already started out at $6,000. That is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how anyone has high expenses like that, especially if it's just you and your spouse and maybe one child. But imagine if our expenses were $6,000. We will only go from there. And before you know, it's going to be $10,000. Before you know, that's going to be a tough emergency fund to save for. I don't know how we would manage off that, but this is kind of just something I've been thinking about. My wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom. Let me know in the comment section if your spouse has kind of expressed wanting to be a stay-at-home parent, if you're actually able to make it happen. Like I said, I don't think you need a huge income, but I think you definitely need to be able to manage your expenses and stay out of debt. Debt is going to kill you, especially if you want your spouse to be a stay-at-home parent, because that's just more money that's unnecessarily coming out of your account that could be going towards your household. So let me know what you guys think about the video, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.